Caroline in ER.
Her name is Dawn. She's 18 years old. And on this day, she's going about part of her daily routine as a college freshman.
I'm proud to be finishing my first semester of college. My grades are really good, and I wish my life previously had gone this well.
And this is the same Dawn a bit earlier in life. At this point, she has a little girl's joy, a little girl's dreams, and even though she's not aware of it, every girl's freedom. She has the freedom as she grows from here into the 18-year-old college freshman she'll one day become to be herself, a person first, a female person second. The freedom to pursue whatever vocation she feels will bring her personal and economic satisfaction, and the freedom to take pride in and enjoy the body she has been born with as it grows into and through adulthood, and never to feel she should risk her health or well-being in search of a look that is not by nature her own. Today, Dawn is keenly aware of that freedom and exercises it fully. Discovering it, though, and discovering herself was a painful, terrifying experience. An experience that the uninformed might call needless, foolish, irrational, and rare. But it's an ordeal that now annually afflicts some 8 million young people in the United States, 10% of whom are males, and 10% of whom lose their lives because of it. Dawn wants to tell you about that ordeal.
It started probably in 4th or 5th grade when I switched elementary schools, and the boys teased like normal boys would, and I was called fat, ugly dog. Thunder thighs is the one that really sticks out in my mind.
Like Dawn, we all begin our self-perception at a very young age. And like Dawn and Nicole, we often don't like what that perception tells us.
I was always sad. I was the butt of all jokes at school, so it was humiliating at the same time. You just felt like a big pile of crap, basically.
It's called negative body image, and as in Anna's case, it often starts with the acts of those we look to most for support.
He'd say, "You're ugly." He said other words that I probably couldn't say right about now, but he didn't really encourage me in the way I looked. I was never told I was beautiful. I was never told that you were loved and you're great looking. And that really made me feel bad when your own father would say things like that about you. It hurts.
How, as we grow from babies, do we discover who we are and what we are? How do we settle in our own minds what we can and can't do, what we want, what we need, what we're worth as a part of the world surrounding us? But most important in terms of our message in this program, how do we determine what we should try to be? Unfortunately, many times we take our cue from what we think those around us like.
You know, guys always seem to prefer women that are real thin and that have a really good body. And it seems like thin women and never really get picked on. They just have it all. They have everything good going for them. That's what I've always seen.
I had skinnier friends who, when, you know, the thing with boys comes along, like around 6th or 7th grade, you know, you want them to like you, so I thought that they only like thin girls.
And whenever I watch MTV or look at all them, they're so skinny and they're so pretty in their dresses, and it made me want to be just like them. I thought, if I ever want to be one of them, I'm going to have to look like that.
My dad always wished that I looked like Janet Jackson. Well, like her. She's like, how come you can't look like her? How come you can't look like Whitney Houston? How come you can't look like Janet Jackson? How come you can't look like one of them girls like on SWV?
I measured my waist every week with a tape measure and measured my hips, and you know, I wanted to be the Kate Moss of the runways or Cindy Crawford.
Film star and former supermodel Andie McDowell knows from personal experience how those cherished media images are created and sustained, and the price human bodies and minds must pay to make it all work. She told Dawn and us about her experiences and what she's learned from them.
Some of the girls may naturally be like that, but from my experience, it was always a struggle. Any of the people that I knew were constantly at battles with maintaining a child's body. You know, no hips, and having clothes be able to hang on you. I mean, it's like a size 4, size 6, and the thing that is so disgusting about it is most of these girls are 5'10", 5'11", you know, and to be that skinny at that height, they look like skeletons. But you know, and the thing is I know what it is to desire to be a skeleton. I wanted my ribs to stick out. I wanted these bones to stick out. I wanted there to be a hole in between my breast, a concaved hole. I thought that was what was great. I mean, I've moved beyond that. I realize how disgusting it is now. And when I look at magazines and I see it, it does not appeal to me at all anymore. I'm just turned 38 the other day, and I've learned a lot, you know, about what really makes a person desirable. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether you are 5 pounds less, 10 pounds less, but yet I understand how we get so wrapped up in this image thing because I've done it myself. I still do it to myself. But I really know now that that's not what's going to make me happy, and it's not what's interesting.
The images so many of us seem to think are ideal usually come out of places like this, photo studios or photo location settings. They begin in the hands of a makeup artist like Diane. And before they reach your eyes or mine, computer artists like Bob add some additional touches of their own, called enhancement. Here's Dawn with professional models Tara and Charlene, and here's how it all comes together. Does anyone not know that these images are less than real? And even before the makeup and the lighting and the angles and the computer alterations, the models at the core of the images are very different from most of us. This is Claudia Schiffer, one of today's most photographed models. Her body, tall, thin, and broad-shouldered, is natural only to very few American women, regardless of how much we diet and exercise. Most women are naturally, that is genetically, pear-shaped, like the popular female sex symbols of 40 years ago, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Russell, Jane Mansfield, and Lana Turner. Typical models from that era weighed less than the average woman, sure, but about 8% less. Today's models, Claudia Schiffer, Kate Moss, Cindy Crawford, weigh on average 23% less than most of us. Why? Why are the images of women presented to us in the media so unrealistically skinny?
It's a woman's shape that we're not accepting. It's like they want you to stay in a state of being in puberty. I mean, we don't glorify women in this country. We have constantly women fighting to remain young. It's women are not accepted for the wonderful creatures that they are. And the beauty is not on the outside. It's not in whether you hang like a bone. We have so much more to give. We're great individuals. We're caring, nurturing, loving, intelligent, warm human beings. But when I go to Los Angeles for my job, I always feel big. At home, I feel really thin, you know, and I'm not necessarily. I'm, you know, a size 8, 10, 5'8", and I can weigh, you know, 138 there and feel great. But when I go to LA, I really will want to drop down to like 132, you know, and to feel sleek and to fit in that society. I mean, I'm torn there too and feel trapped. I feel trapped. But in all honesty, at 138, I'm perfectly beautiful. But it's a different image, and it's an image that I'm sold as well as everybody else. So I'm trapped.
So our obsession with thinness continues.
And then I said, then the kids will like me also because I'll be thinner, and thin is beautiful. I thought thin was beautiful, and then that would make them like me. That would cause, you know, it would solve all my problems. I'd be popular, everyone would love me, things like that. And even as I got thinner, people would say, why are you getting so thin? They never said, oh, you look so good. They'd say, you look horrible, what is wrong? You know, you look like you're anorexic, you must have a problem. And I didn't believe them. I thought, no, I don't. I'm just, you know, losing weight here. I'm on a diet. And it didn't work.
You look like you're anorexic. When popular music star Karen Carpenter died in 1983 of complications from anorexia nervosa, most Americans had no idea what that term meant. Today we know all too well what it means, and what bulimia means, and what binging and purging and compulsive eating mean. We know they are all forms of what are now referred to as eating disorders. They are illnesses, serious illnesses, that lead to some 150,000 deaths each year. At their core are feelings of helplessness that are played out through the sufferer's relationship with food.
The food, you can deal with it in so many ways. The food can give you security. The food can give you somewhere to run. Alcoholics will drink the alcohol so they can be drunk and so they don't have to deal with what may be going on with their family or whatever. Overeaters, anorexics, anybody with an eating disorder can deal with food as the same way, as some place to go so they don't have to deal with the feelings.
When I was in elementary, at least about grade 3, I used to get teased by all kids, the way I dress, the way I look, the way my weight is, you know, being fat and everything. And I would come home and start crying, and then all of a sudden you have this urge to eat because it makes you feel better. And you come home, you eat and you eat and you eat until you feel better. Then you go back to school, then you get teased again, get depressed again, start crying again, then you come home, then you eat and eat. Mostly it's from depression, hurt, the feeling that you have inside for pain, to like use food to let it go.
Well, I'd come to school and I wouldn't eat breakfast or anything, and for lunch I wouldn't eat. I'd see people eating, and for a while I'd want to eat because I was really hungry. But then after a long period of time, like after days and stuff, it wouldn't even affect me anymore. And if I tried to eat, it hurt and made me feel like I needed to vomit. I'd go days and days without eating, and then when I would finally eat, I'd just eat a little bit of something.
I mean, you may start out that you want to lose weight, or you know, you think you're eating too much, and so you need to calm it down a little bit. You're kidding yourself. You're not dieting to lose weight. There's something else that's going on, whether it be sexual abuse, molestation, an abusive relationship. You just don't feel like you fit in. Something is going on inside that you're not dealing with, and the food is how you deal with it without really facing the issue. If you're bulimic, you're shoving the food in so the feelings don't come up. If you're anorexic, you're starving those feelings so you don't have to deal with them. I mean, I've dealt with my feelings both those ways, and none of it doesn't work.
As Dawn came to realize, the motivation that underlies eating disorders, although it may at first seem simply a desire to improve appearance, is an outgrowth of much deeper feelings, painful feelings, nearly always the result of low self-esteem.
I used to type in my bedroom, and I used to think, I'm going to stay here till I am thin, until I do look good. And finally I thought, that's not going to happen. You know, this is all so hopeless. I'm never going to be anybody. I'm never going to look good. No one's going to ever like me, so what's the point of living? And that made me want to kill myself, because I thought, no one cares about me, no one wants me, I'm not good enough, just look at me, I'm not good enough. So I might as well just die, and then everyone will be happy. I thought that dying would make people happy because they wouldn't have to look at me anymore.
What causes such low self-esteem? So low that we feel the world would be glad to see us gone. Very often, it's unrealistic expectations about ourselves and who we are.
Every time I looked at myself, I still saw the fat there. I mean, nothing was ever perfect. I still had a big butt, or my thighs were too big, or my stomach was too big. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't thin enough. I mean, it felt like I had to be thin, like stick skinny, in order to be noticed by people. It all had to do with being noticed by people.
What we think we should look like is usually dictated by what we and those around us see in the media. We also tend to confuse what we look like with who we are.
And I think I wanted people to think me as good. And the only way for them to think that I was any good was if I was thin or beautiful.
Sometimes, though, it's not our demands that cause the problem. Shannon's father, for example.
I tell myself all the time that, maybe I should commit suicide because I don't want to be fat and everything. And so he wouldn't tease me anymore.
And Heidi's father.
When I was about 9 years old, my parents split up. My mom left, and I stayed with my dad, and I was very close to my mom. My dad sexually abused me when I was 10.
A few years later, as a freshman in high school, she found herself with an abusive boyfriend.
Him always telling me that I was fat and I was going to crack the cement and stuff. And then I had to lose weight, and that just, really made me think, well, he thinks that, everybody else must think that too.
Dawn had the same kind of boyfriend.
He never said, flat out, you're ugly, you're fat, but he made me feel as if I was. And I stayed with him because he made me feel as if I left him, I would be nothing.
And trapped in her fear of being nothing, like so many, many young women today, Dawn's ordeal began in full.
I didn't want to eat in front of people because I was afraid that they would think, oh my God, what is she eating, what a pig. And then I started taking diet pills. I took everything there was on the market until I found one that I thought worked for me. I'd eat an apple before I would go work out at a gym, and I'd work out 2-3 hours on the stair stepper and treadmill and everything else. And then I would go out to Bayshore Park with the big stairs, the big stone steps, and run up and down those like 50 times or something like that. It was hard for me to control much of anything else. Like I couldn't control the kids at school. I couldn't control my ex-boyfriend, what he did. I couldn't control my parents, my family, anything else. So I felt eating was something that I could control. After a while, I got to a point where I couldn't control what I ate and what I didn't eat. So food then became my enemy. It was like I would see it and it would talk to me and tell me to eat it, but I couldn't eat it because I couldn't get fat. And I was saying this when I was 98 pounds and wore 4 layers of clothes just to go to school and couldn't sit down on chairs because it hurt, because my bones were just sticking out in my butt and it hurt to sit down. And the first time when I threw up had to have been my lowest point. I mean, I was so disgusted with myself. I just went in the bathroom and stuck the toothbrush down my throat, and it just was the worst feeling in the world. I mean, it was the worst and it was the best. I mean, I say it's my lowest point, but it's like when I threw up, I just let out all that anger at myself when I threw up, and I let out all that hurt that I felt, and it was probably the worst feeling, and it felt good to be released like that, but it's not healthy, and I don't need to do that to myself. I didn't need that, so I only did it once, and that's all it took for me to realize that this is it. I can't handle it anymore.
And Dawn went through all of that because she didn't look like Kate Moss or Claudia Schiffer? Well, no. As a matter of fact, she didn't.
When I was a freshman, I was out to make the world, the perfect place to live in. I was out there to solve everyone's problems, and I wasn't looking at my own.
Eating disorders seldom develop unless we're hurting inside and overly concerned with how others see us.
But if I stop eating, then I just might be able to look better, and at the same time, I'll be doing something mean to myself because I was angry at myself for not being perfect, not having, other kids like me. And I thought, well, at the same time, I'm gonna look better, other kids will like me, and yet I'll be punishing myself. I'll be punishing myself for the way I look and, how homely and strange and I am.
Depression almost always accompanies serious eating disorders. Anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and compulsive overeating, all life-threatening illnesses. Anorexia nervosa, Anna's and Heidi's and Dawn's illness, is a relentless pursuit of thinness that leads to excessive weight loss. Often menstruation stops, leaving women at risk of never being able to bear children. An anorexic is likely not to admit any problem with the weight loss or the self-starvation.
My friends and stuff would tell me, Heidi, you're losing so much weight, and my mom would mention it to me. And I knew I was losing weight, and I knew the size of my jeans were going down, but I still didn't see that I was losing weight. I still thought I was just as fat.
The second major eating disorder, bulimia nervosa, involves frequent episodes of binge eating, almost always followed by purging and intense feelings of guilt or shame. Bulimia nervosa was Nicole's disorder.
I used to exercise all the time and drink big, huge glasses of water and force myself, like I'd eat something, but I'd force myself at the same time by drinking all that water right after I ate to throw it all back up and to not use my fingers or anything and to say, oh, I have a deficiency or something, you know, my stomach just can't handle food, and people would believe me.
Bulimics, unlike anorexics, usually feel out of control and know that their behavior isn't ordinary. Compulsive eaters and overweight binge eaters eat uncontrollably, don't purge afterward, and sometimes keep this behavior secret. Shannon is a compulsive eater.
You come home, you eat, and you eat, and you eat until you feel better. Then you go back to school, then you get teased again, get depressed again, start crying again, then you come home, then you eat and eat.
These are the common eating disorders that result in over 150,000 deaths each year, nearly all of them to young women, often active, skilled, and accomplished young women, like Karen Carpenter, like gymnast Christy Henrik, like Cindy Schott. Cindy was born and raised in rural Hillsdale, Wisconsin. She was a 4-H queen, a member of the Honor Society, a trumpet player in the band, and editor of her school newspaper. She graduated from college, fell in love, and became extremely successful in a career that seemed to suit her perfectly.
Cindy Schott, News Center 13 at noon.
You know, it's funny. When I was growing up here on our family farm in Barron County, I watched TV 13, but I sure never imagined that someday I'd be working there.
She quickly advanced to co-anchor on the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock WEAU TV newscasts. Her professional skills were impeccable, her popularity enormous. She became not only a charming local celebrity, but an adored household name throughout northwestern Wisconsin. But while her fame and recognition continued to grow, Cindy continued to struggle with a lifelong problem, her inability to accept herself. She soon focused that struggle on food. It and eating were subjects she wouldn't discuss even with her closest friends, including her fiancé. She was starving herself, and everyone around her knew it. Her refusal to do anything about it ended her engagement. It also prompted friends who feared for her life to have her forcefully committed to a hospital, where she refused care and was quickly released on legal grounds. She never forgave the friends, and she never got the help she needed. The newscast she began at 10 p.m. on this Wednesday, September 11th, 1991, was her last.
As News Center 13's Terry Bell reports, the city's plan has come in a much altered form.
24 hours later, her co-anchor, John Croy, made this announcement.
Good evening. Cynthia Louise Schott, compassionate, caring, loving, and loved. Cindy suddenly left us today. She died in Eau Claire of natural causes in her home.
The official diagnosis was acute heart failure due to complications of anorexia nervosa. Toward the end, she fell in the bathtub from weakness and cut her chin. She had trouble sleeping. She told her mother her teeth were hurting. She was 31 years old, 5 feet 8 inches tall, and weighed just under 90 pounds. As incredible as it seems, not only did her friends and loved ones have to sit by and watch helplessly as Cindy starved, but so did thousands of adoring viewers who brought her into their homes night after night after night. How does starting to diet at 15 lead to death at 31? Is it physical, psychological, Sociological? Recent medical studies make a convincing case that those who develop eating disorders are genetically disposed to the condition, that their bodies become literally addicted to the chemical response that accompanies starving, binging, and purging. As those who become alcoholics are compelled to consume intoxicants, those who become anorexic and bulimic are compelled to starve themselves. That may well be a part of the answer, but if there weren't something else or something more, boys and men would make up more than about 10% of the anorexic and bulimic population. A growing number of males are becoming afflicted with this problem, but at this point, eating disorders, at least those that grow into life-altering, life-threatening illnesses, usually strike women, mostly young women, including a growing number of young minority women. And so long as we buy into the myth that our worth is as simple as the measure of our beauty, we'll continue to cheat ourselves and the world of talents and achievements that never develop. When our culture begins to routinely encourage us to take pride in our work in math and science and athletics, rather than in our dress sizes and measurements, when we look for role models and fix our dreams for the future in business, industry, medicine, and the arts, rather than in faces and bodies looking out at us from magazine pages and video screens, when we learn to accept ourselves for ourselves without regard to our achievements, then we'll no longer be driven to the dieting and bouts with food that so often lead to anorexia, bulimia, and compulsive eating. But until all that happens, we'll very likely continue to risk starvation in search of something about ourselves that we can like.
Right now, I'm just trying to control my disorder and realizing that I'm not a bad person. I don't need to beat myself up, and that I have a lot to offer people.
Dawn got help for her illness. So did Nicole and Heidi and Anna. Others, like Cindy Schott, didn't. The difference was life and death. Wherever you are, whatever eating problem you or someone close to you might be having, there are understanding and caring people to help. Talk to a teacher, talk to a school counselor, talk to a trusted adult. Dawn's discovery was no accident. Neither was Nicole's, nor Anna's, nor Heidi's. Each young woman's recovery was as unique a process as her own personal needs and circumstances. Above all, remember, surviving eating disorders alone or trying to live with them takes over 150,000 young lives each year.
And the only thing I am sad about is I'm sad I've wasted any time in my life. Wasted time on worrying about weight or appearance in such, I mean, it's in a sense, it's so sad that I've wasted as much time as I have. And I want to be like my friend who is 70. I want to be full of life and have knowledge and great experiences in life. I mean, that to me is what's beautiful, when you can meet somebody and you know, someone is going to be desperately interested in you because of all of that is going on. I mean, do you think they're really going to be interested in you because clothes hang on you?